Welcome to another issue of Truth Shocks. Today we talk about God in perspective, and this is part one, or there's going to be other parts to it. If you think that our words will not break the spells, wait until you see the truths that come from the seeds already sown. You have thousands of years of adverse norms to counteract. Let me tell you a story. Take it as an allegory or take it as history. It does not matter. Just be certain that the story will have an impact on your life and what your future could hold at this time in the ages. Whatever was done. Concentrate on what will be done or on what now we will do to give you greater power the next time you make human priority based choices that will affect you and posterity across eons of time. To pour new wine or spirit into an old vessel, we must first extract or pour the old wine, right? Then we can fill the empty bottle with new wine. And this is what was done to the human's divine spirit. The old paradigm rested upon divine and the natal connection to the source, God. We say God internal, man divine. The new paradigm, which now holds presently, is one where the man has berated his own conscience, that he cannot make his own decisions. It will be represented as the child or seed of the sun, stretched out at the equinox, or the cross at the deathline on the horizon, the crucifixion. It will be a lamb to the slaughter, meek and mild, a lack of intelligence that needs to be led, a dead and crucified conscience that looks outward for God, dependent on external forces to make judgment on its behalf. Everything outside of you conspires for its own cause. Don't be a zombie. It matters not who or what, and therefore you must retain personal autonomy. Don't be a zombie. I do not care if it is mother, father, wife, or child. Everyone outside of you is selfish to self in every decision they make. The only judge that serves your justice at the degree of 100% is you. You must retain personal autonomy. You cannot understand with someone else's understanding. Realize that wherever intelligence is given in the universe, it is given by and to authority. Wherever intelligence is given in the universe, it is given by and to authority. It is the authorizing signature of God written in concrete upon the human heart. It is the seal of a judge and God's creator. As a matter of fact, it is the evidence of God's character. Only a God can be a judge, for intelligence in the unconscionable mind is exactly anarchy. If you are of an intelligent form, you must have free will, you must have autonomy of conscience, and you must retain the critical mind. Most of all, you must consider yourself the seed from the shining star, the light of the morning star, the son and daughter of God that is your creation and reality. Call this an allegory if it works better for you. But here is the story of the reasons and beginnings of systemic and enforced superstitions in the form of religion, a cult used as a god spell. Whether you believe it or not, there is no mathematical way to deny the accuracy of this demon casting power of a tool for capturing the souls of men. The word cult is very operative in the study of God's spell sorcery, and at some point we will have to spend time on breaking it down and bringing it into perspective to raise you to a higher level of understanding regarding these divine magic principles. If you have not hit the like button, please take a second and do so. If you want to be alerted when this topic continues, hit the subscription buttons. And I always keep saying, it really doesn't cost to contribute to this effort. I mean, just hit the like button and you can help me heaps. Thousands of years ago, great men appeared upon the earth. They came with mighty rocket ships that crisscrossed the four corners of the globe, and mankind, seeing these celestials, was in awe and even became subject to them. They saw these mighty ones come down from the heavens on the wings of the wind, as the Bible would say. They saw them bring their godlike presence to the top of the ice mountains with roaring thunder and lightning. They saw these men bring down to earth majestic heavenly homes that stayed as floating beacons like the sun, are rested upon mountains with fire in their bellies. They saw ships in the sky that they considered to be little planets hovering around the earth. Not only did they imagine these beings to be from the heavens, but an introduction. The strangers at some point, or some of the strangers at some point, told them so. These were magical occurrences that would not seem so impossible had the subjects known the natural realities that made the miracles come to be. Had they known the science, they wouldn't be led into superstition. For a lack of understanding, the subjects took superstitious perspectives that these higher beings had unfathomable powers and wisdom, and only they could know the God secrets, or the secrets of magic that would be involved in these designs. By that superstition, caused by failure to explain what seemed supernatural, power was given to the esoteric. They used science to incite a sense of magic to the subjects that made the vessels fly, that powered the tasers which these men referred to as flying or winged beings used to strike down and keep the primitive attackers at bay and ready to surrender. How did we get to this point? Where did it begin? Why were one group of men so advanced and the others primitive? As a matter of fact, what I see are bigger men than what are on the earth now, like giants. If we try to go there, we will be on a far different tangent. Like if we try to really go um to all the details, we will probably be too far off. So let us concentrate on what was to explain just what we require. We always say that um nothing new happens under the sun or in this world, right? And it's true. It's true. 1,000 years in the future, there might be primitive times, and it might be long before the invention of the computer. And I'm not talking about the past, I'm talking about the future. I'm saying 1,000 years in the future, there might be primitive times, and it might be long before the invention of the computer. Then these people will advance and in many cases decipher objects from us that they dug and studied through archaeology. And when they build the motor car, and maybe it will be because somebody used reverse, what you call reverse technology, right? But there again, the massive would not know. But when they build this motor car, they would probably say that they can't imagine how we survived without transport in our primitive times long before the motor car. No one will tell the populace that what they had was reverse engineered from what they took from our buried empires. Because as above, so below, the cycle continue. I hope you get it. Open your eyes. Just open your eyes. The way of perpetual motion is circular. All things exist in that innate form. There is no beginning or end. The future is on a different wavelength that has nothing to do with time, and so too is the past. The image seen of the furthest star that arrives upon the earth might be that of 100 years ago. The star that we are looking at might likely not be there anymore, yet we see it in its presence. No ray of starlight upon the earth will reflect the present time of the star. All events are perpetual. The longer the citizens of any civilization of intelligent beings live long life, the more intelligent they become. The longer your life, the more intelligent you are by the time that you leave this plane or any other plane. This is why the DNA had to be affected to prevent them living for 500 years or more. I want you to get it. Or I want to tell you what I mean. I mean that your DNA was affected to prevent you from living over 500 years. Not only that, but your brain. It's not that you don't have all those infinite powers. You can imagine when maybe you watch some people on YouTube talking about divine human powers. It's not like your mind is not just as powerful as before, but it's the faculty to carry the thoughts through your mind, which means it's your body, it's your brain that's limited. So maybe if you can do a study and check out the DNA and check out the brain to see if restrictions were not put on them, by people who you gave access to your body by them saying, oh, there's a problem with your body or something is going to your body. So you have to give us access to your body. Much wisdom and understanding come with experience and longevity in any intelligent species will favor science more than anything. Yeah. Can you imagine if Einstein lived for 500 years? Those that live for 1,000 years or more could consider themselves as gods and well equipped to use their many years to discover the universe and its perpetual motion. The more personal autonomy in terms of free will thinking the intelligent beings have, the more advanced they become. In the case of what was happening on Earth at that time, it seemed like the other entities wanted to use the Earth populations as slaves. This is what I'm seeing. In fact, there is a sense that one faction of these supreme beings were sociopathic devils that fed upon human energy. There were the ones that would use the subjects to mine precious metals, etc. But there was the other that wanted to feed on the energy of mankind to the most disgustingly awesome degree that it seems surreal. Humankind are referred to as sheep. When you sing a song about the lamb that was slain, it exactly means the man that was slain. And when you talk about Jesus, you're talking about every single sort of man that is on the earth, and you still can't see it yet. Don't you realize that every time you do communion, you sell the soul of your children, you sell the body and blood of your child? Do you realize that you agree to the sacrificing of your children? Can all the churches please come together, join together, get all the wise men and the great men and come and try to disprove what I'm telling you by the facts that you already have. It is what it is. It is what I'm telling you, and your preacher will not tell you that. It is simply agreeing to sell the body of the Son of Man. And the Son of Man is you and your child. You agree with these entities. They are asking you, they are putting it to you, and you are agreeing, and you're signing a contract by the time you do that ritual. That is what is happening. And then you come and then you say, hey, too much crime, too much violence, people are going down, children are going missing, and some elite people are cooking people for dinner at some meeting or something like that. You are complaining. It's like you, it's like a man who gave another man his wife for the night and then he was at his home bitching and complaining about it. But you already made the decision. You give your children, but you are complaining that they are missing. At some point, one of these advanced beings came up with the idea of using God spells to put mankind into further awe and own even their souls. When you own a slave, by holding his heart, he becomes zealous to be your slave. A part of the reason was that some believed that these earlier ones of mankind, whether by miscegenation or by natural inheritance, were just like the supreme beings referred to here as gods. They could learn to build their own vessels that sail to the heavens like the gods. They could hinge them on tall towers and send them into the sky so they could reach into the heavens like the gods. They were learning these things. They have the faculty to learn them, at least with all things equal, and they could keep their same brains, they could keep their same body, could keep long life, and let's see what else if they could keep. They could keep the original culture, God internal pan-defined, without different confusion, without this confounded vision, divide and rule. People cannot understand the other because they are caught up in a different mindset. See, they had logical and critical thinking, and even to some extent, it seemed that they could be possibly more intelligent than some of these God beings. So you see where there would be a problem, right? They had logical or critical thinking, these mankind, and even to some extent, it seemed that they could be possibly more intelligent than the God beings. They sought ways to scientifically tamper. This is like I'm saying, the God beings found ways to scientifically tamper with the workings of the human DNA so that mind and spirit divinations became as inaccessible as possible. It's harder for him to manifest because his mind is not his brain is not compatible with the mind. The slave makers would scientifically compromise the human ability to be clear and accurate in mind focus and reckoning, simply by finding ways to get access to the subject's body. They could cast many spells. All they would do was make the subjects be scared and desperate for solutions, and they would have just that, but based on blind and complete trust, right? So if he tells you that, I have to take your son and I have to chop his foot off out here, and then I have to put him inside there, and somebody will come with a new leg for him, and then it's a great thing that's going to happen, but we have to do impossible things to stop it. Only we can stop it. Only we can stop the problem. The same problem that we are creating now, we didn't create it. Don't believe we created it. We are solving it, not creating it. But that is why we want you to eat shit, but the shit is not to poison you. The shit is to make you strong. And then when you're strong now, we will find another medicine to cure the shit. And then you might have shitty gut, but I mean that's not our intention. But in the future we will fix it. This is what. I mean, is this still going on or did it stop at some point? I don't know. You tell me. By giving them many notions of differences, they would be reduced to confounded vision or Babel, as the Bible would call it. Oh, a woman was hit by a car in halfway tree, and it was a male driver. And this only show that we have a serious problem of violence against women. Violence has different names. Violence has gender. So it is not to polarize the society and set one against the other by giving one a false sense of injustice to take revenge against the other. We are not doing that. We are just trying to help women from being abused by men. And when we say these men, it is not to say all men, but it's just the way, it's just how we speak. So it's not to send a false message to the human mind that men are generally hunting women to violently mistreat them. We are not polarizing anything. We are just trying to help you, not hurt you. I mean, did it stop anywhere or is it still going on? You tell me. The supreme entities would bring man to a dependency for definitions. This is the term I like to use. They would bring man to a dependency for definitions and give them various demon cults to confuse them with, placing them into separate cells of disagreement. They would create and teach them disagreement in everything, even when the things are the same. They would tweak it that it look like the opposite, and they would be complaining over it for as long. Atheism, atheism and Christianity, atheism and religion are exactly the same. It sounds impossible when I tell you that. Who want to challenge me and I prove it? I mean, atheism and Christianity are the same, are just the same. But you are going to be fighting over two things that seem different when they are the same. It's confounded vision. So they are going to look like opposites because these people they work so hard at doing this, and it's this couldn't be something that was built like 500 years ago. It's thousands of years. They would create and teach the humans disagreement in everything. They would divide them that one would not be able to listen or understand the other. By witchcraft, they did all these things. And a part of what I am now about is to expose the witchcraft. They would divide and rule, but first they would have to destroy the free will by extracting God from within man using science magic. They would and scare man into dependency for definitions. I keep repeating that. Everyone would fall into a category outside of the belief and demonic culture of the other. This would be done upon every conceivable sphere within the human societal order, by it spiritual or otherwise. It would be done upon every conceivable possible point of division, be it spiritual or otherwise. Nothing but a God spell could perfectly realize this plan. The supreme ones used the societal order as a limiting tool. They created a fixed notion of what is normal in everything to the four corners of the spirit of earth paradigm. In this way, one sheep would shepherd the other who begged to differ or to think outside the box. Taboo. This norm was to continue until the masses became cultivated to not accept difference. The supreme ones that had ego wanted to be gods. Different ones made themselves into deity. Stories were told. Science, magic was used to awe and bring superstition to the minds of the subjects, and religion was formed under the enlightened characters. Many stories that are adapted by the Bible, including that of Adam and Eve, were created in that period as stories that the Supreme Ones passed down to humankind. But even these stories, they change and manipulate in order to still have different belief systems surrounding them and divisions again. And these stories was simply to get the humans to surrender to their authority. As long as he would pray and see them as gods, he would be under their control. The only way to gain complete control over their souls was to make them fear, trust, and obey. The only way to do this to a human was to eject God from within him. Wherever God is rejected, the soul is sold. The slave becomes soulless, acting as a zombie. We will go into how this God spell was enacted and how exactly it worked, but this is not for now. Let us get to the point of the day. God in perspective. I picked this topic for you to free your minds from trick and meaningless words or definitions that sell you an illusion. When you think the word God, your mind is clouded by superstitions and other useless superficial influences. Moreover, your mind tends to mostly forget the ambiguity of this word. My personal experience taught me to embrace the true definition of God in perspective. God in question will always depend on the context to reason. There are many gods and understandings of God, and you must be able to discern everywhere that there might be a separation of issues. If you begin by substituting supremacy for God, you will be on a good path to healing. I will not stop to explain why, but you will see it by simply continuing to follow the line of argument. So, for argument's sake, we agree that God will simply mean supremacy at every dimension to every degree of that thought, as in the large, so in the small. Now you must relate the use of the word God to the context whenever the word is spoken. We might say many things about God, but every context brings a different perspective to that supremacy and to the degree of that supremacy. Whether of the finite or infinite value, we can say God is the goodest man. God is all the universe. God is a school teacher. And God is the man who owns your ass on this earth plane because you agree to be owned. We can say God is a queen bee. Our God is the government, our king. These place God to the context of the particular, the finite. We can say God is infinity, all that there is. There we put God into the infinite, indefinable, or even inaccessible realm. Now, we as a man must come to grasp with how we relate to these perspectives and what value they may hold in our living reality. If we speak to God in the finite principle, we must admit that it is not the ultimate power. For example, if we say that God is the moon, then what of the sun? That is even bigger. This means that a useful relationship with God has nothing to do with any fact that it is the single most powerful, where even that idea is impossible, for it cannot be one single out of its one self that is bigger than itself. If we say God is all, by speaking to it in the infinite sense, we must admit that the fact that it is everything makes it also inaccessible and therefore a non-issue. For example, what can you do with infinity? What can infinity do for you? Everything or nothing at all simultaneously? Well, you can draw the figure 8 turned on its side, but that will be about all you can do with that which is infinite all. We must now come to the awakening that any useful reckoning of God is limited to a localized supreme value. Nothing except the particular will be valid to reason. All this unless one thing is true. The only way that this will be contradicted and man will rise to the supremacy of full omnipotence is via the principle of God internal, man divine, the original principle. It would mean here that man will be connected to spirit and spirit is all. And within his vast infinite resource, he will draw on the particular at will. In other words, the spirit of perpetual motion. All that is without you is within every man as infinity cannot be limited, not even in the minutest space. So now we come to the realization that any useful connection with God must come from the particular. There must be the final God that we might speak to about the particular. And this is why the queen bee was put into her place. However, as I explained earlier, if the infinite God is in man, then man becomes himself the divine, and from his divinity comes the manifestation of his particular realities. I want to carry this thread of thought to the degree that we get into discussing the societal systems handed to the earlier humans by the supreme deities. I want to show you that the mindset of government will become the reality of their people. The people take on the mindset of government. If there is crime and violence, for example, it is either the mindset or the will of government. It cannot be the people's fault, and this will prove beyond a shadow of doubt when we observe culture and mindset cultivation. I want to tell you this again very clearly. Any high rate of crime and violence in any country, not any country, will deliberately be caused by government unless this government is not educated. Ask your government to desist with the evil if it occurs. We often hear Christians say that God is omnipotent. To be all powerful is to share intimate faculty with all things in existence. This is the infinite God and the same indweller, intrinsic to every man, which in most was compromised for ulterior motives. They also say that God is omniscient. Yes, by creation force being natal to the human, God in man has all knowledge of all things, and being in man gives man the glorious faculty to continue to seek forever, to discover more forever, and to be rewarded by higher truths forever. They say that God is omnipresent, meaning he is everywhere. This is to satisfy the truth of God's infinite nature. That man comes from the infinite source. Infinity cannot be limited, neither to the infinitely large or infinitely small. Therefore, all that exists is in man, and the more man takes his own power, the more he ascends to higher heavens. He will stagnate with being carrying these sociopathic parasites on his back for ages. He will stagnate with being carrying these sociopathic parasites on his back for ages. So we will now deduce that omnipotence means that it is present everywhere. To say God is omnipresent means it is in the sky where the birds can access it. It is in outer space and even beyond the range of the rocket ships. It means that God is beside you and it is near and far. Cool? But moreover, it has to mean that God is inside you. So for what reason would you look outside you? And for what purpose will you look up? Will you leave the birds to access to God in the sky? To say heaven is at hand does not mean heaven is coming. It means heaven is here. Why wait? When the preacher tells you to have your tithes and offering at hand, you understand that it's with you, right? So how won't you understand what heaven is at hand means? To say God is omnipotent means that God is in you. Why is it that someone must tell you that God sent you a message? Since I always try not to make the videos too long, I will break for not I will break for now and continue with part 2, which will be up within the next 48 hours. I hope this small bit was enough to give you something to think about. Peace out.